Especially if he's adult. What are you picking up?
Oh, yeah.
Boop, 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 boop.
So he's
And we'll end, Kate. We'll end.
Before you answer that, mate. Before you say that is a whole lot.
Right.
What do you reckon?
I'll open the meeting. And do acknowledgement of country. The Circular Council acknowledges the Northwest Tasmanian Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of the country on which we stand, meet and play. We recognise their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. Now, abstaining from prayers tonight will be by Deputy Mayor.
Lord, I just want to thank you that we can come here tonight, Lord, and I just pray for the decisions that are made with your guidance, Lord, and your direction. But I pray for the next council, that with the people that are thinking about coming along and joining this council table, Lord, I just pray, Lord, that you go before them and their decisions they make, Lord. And we just ask that in your name. Amen. And we'll say the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
We'll now move along to, there's no leave of absence or apologies because we're all here. We'll have the confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting held on the 21st of July. Somebody prepared to move that. Thanks, Councillor Roldaker. Seconded.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Blizzard. Any queries on the accuracy of the minutes? Rachel had her hand up for a minute. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. 3, 3, 1, 0, 3, 2, 0, 3, 3, 0. 3, 4, questions without notice. Are there any councillor questions without notice? Councillor Alder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to ask the question, the data that's been collected on the Woolworth Road, when are we likely to see those figures? Because been some comments made to them that they're quite disturbing, but I need to wait till we see the figures first.
I don't know if anyone else would probably have to take it on notice.
We do have to take that one on notice because I know the figures are nearly ready, but they have been asked to be kept confidential at the moment. But yes, that will be forthcoming very shortly. We had a first communication from the Cradle Coast Authority about it yesterday.
Any further questions without notice? Councillor Redland.
I just was after an update from the Cradle Coast work that they're doing with connectivity. Has there been any update on what they were doing or what they're
I haven't seen any, no. No, I don't know. And I'm not aware of any, no. We haven't been to any for a while.
I think that that's really important infrastructure that we should follow up.
Yeah. We can follow it up. Any further questions?
Mayor, I've just got
Councillor Harris.
one in relation to foot and mouth disease. I note on the 4th of August that there was at a workshop discussion around this, but my question relates, and it's for the Director of Corporate Services, is does Council have an income strategy going forward if we are to get FMD, due to the fact that, as would have been discussed, that farmers might be able to source income for several months.
I would say that there was nothing in the budget. Normally with those type of things, if it does come up, we would organise a meeting swiftly. And I know we did talk to Craig when he was here, and he's going to keep us informed of if there's anything happening that we need to be aware of. He did say that council will not be the first port of call, it'll be the DP. They'll be making a lot of the decisions, like we would be informed, but we would, if there was something that we needed to do, would need to do a budget amendment before we could spend money, because probably depending on how much money we would have to spend, if it wasn't very much, we could probably handle it, but if it was significant, we'd obviously need to do a budget amendment.
Yep. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Harris, in terms of your, it's more focused on a rates sort of ability to pay type of model.
Correct.
Then, you know, we always have the ability to make arrangements with rate pay. So that could be one thing, whether that be generally it's within the 12 months of the rating year, so people don't get behind. But if it's longer than that, then council has enough cash reserves in place at the moment to be able to do that for a small period of time. So it would be just a discussion to work out the impact on the community, and then working out how we could manage that with the reserves that we have, and yeah, what effect that would actually have. So it would just be a discussion at the time.
That's right.
Yeah. We also have, through Mr. Mayor too, and we also have, you know, overdraft facilities and other, you know, borrowing facilities available to us as well too. If the council deems that's the way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions without notice?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a question I asked probably about 3 or 4 months ago, and it's to do with the swirl sign. And I'm just wondering how much longer we have to wait. The answers I've been given is that it's the electrician. Maybe we should be changing our electrician to get the job done. Thank you.
Yes, I will respond to that, because I'm equally as frustrated that we haven't been able to get it operational. I understand that we are waiting for an electrician, and I will follow that up and see if we can't use somebody else, perhaps.
Yep. Thank you.
Anything further? No further questions. We'll go on to declaration of pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, enclosed 18.1 non-pecuniary interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? What? Move right along to agenda items 5, 6 and 7, and we move this as a block. Is somebody prepared to move that?
Moved.
Deputy Mayor and Councillor Ratman. Put the recommendation, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now go to workshop. There was 2 there. Any queries on those? No. Mayor's appointments. There was a couple there. On the 27th, the Renewables, Climate and Future Industry Tasmania meeting. And that was to do with our wind farms, and responding to the government's finally woken up to the fact that they haven't done community consultation very well, and there's been 2 gentlemen assigned to actually changing that. And I'll just get our general manager to tell you of your meeting you had or your phone call you got with the meeting next week.
Yes, and they've reached out, their communications manager has reached out to me for a further meeting next week to discuss some specifics of community engagement, communication, consultation. So I think they are starting to realise they need to do more now. So I'll keep you informed when I know what's happening.
So they come and said, oh, is there any issues? I said, well, yes, how long have you got? And so we talked about the fact that government's got a plan for this area, but nobody knows anything about it. And it is on the website, but not too many people know where to find it. And it has been a real frustration for us. And a bit of flack over things that belong to the state government. And so they did get the message and they did respond back. So that was one good thing. And the next one was on the 28th, the next day. There was on a high for those. We had Denise McIntyre on the phone about the Anns Road issue with the bridge. And that was quite successful. She actually understood. She'd done her homework. And she's agreed that they're going to look at the, there's a hydro pole there that needs to be shifted and some vegetation that needs to be shifted. And they're going to work with our department on the roads to look at trying to get funding through the federal government to do something with the bridge. So that was positive, and so the state growth is actually going to help us get some funds to 2 or 3 buckets of funding that we can get into. Some's about 50% and some's up to 80%, so we're not sure which one we could get yet, but we're going to do some more work with our staff to work out what's the best option and then work together to get some funding. So
on that one, was there any time frame or timeline on sort of getting?
No, they're just going to start working on it now, and soon as we can go whenever we like to try to get the funding, but they're going to help us get something together and give us support as well. That's right.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On this subject of Yarns Road, did you give any indication that they would do something about widening that Bellmere? Because that's where the issue is. It's a narrow bridge that they come across.
Yep.
If the semi-trailers are coming this way from up the coast, is that they've got to get right out onto the lane, and it is quite dangerous.
Yep, that's what we talked about, and that's what they were talking about. You know, the hydro pole that needs to be shifted and some vegetation, some trees, and whatever needs to go out as well. And so that's going to be all part of it. And the safety issue is something which you recognise, and but she did had her information pretty well spot on, didn't she?
Yep, she did. There was a lot of discussion about the turn radius and looking to see to what extent the heavy vehicles could be kept in the right-hand lane that might be. And they were going to consider whether they could do improvements as part of the highway upgrade that's already happened.
Because there was another road that was going to be some work done on it, which is not going to happen now, and so because it's a private road, and so there would be some funding available to be able to do some work. So, but we need to find out exactly what needs to happen, and the engineers will obviously work together to do what needs to happen. Anything else on
item 12?
Number 3 and number 12, could you tell us a bit more about those activities?
3, Venture Minerals. Venture Minerals not in our area, but they want to just come down and talk about the Tarling dams and whatever that they're seeking to do. Shack come in as well, and so just to bring us up to speed. That's all with that. And number 12, which is 2 for
Candidate outreach.
Oh, candidate outreach. That was the one on Monday. We had 3 prospective candidates that showed a fair amount of interest and asked some good questions, and yeah, no, it was good.
That was different to the candidate forum.
No, that was.
There was the candidate forum, but then there says candidate outreach. I just wondered who and what sort of activities.
Oh, sorry, the candidate forum was the one here we had on the Thursday night on the 25th. There was 3 that come there as well, and then there was 3 that came on to time out on Monday. And
so did you outreach, or did
Yes, we outreached.
yes.
number 9, the Arthur Pyman conservation, what was the outcome of that? Anything?
That was just a normal Arthur Pyman monthly meeting that we had, and there was really nothing more than what's been discussed in the past, really. Monthly meeting we had.
Yep.
Anything further? Okay, moving right along, we don't have late agenda items. We'll move to public question time. Now, I don't intend to read it out tonight. It's in there for us to read about how we expect people to treat council. So 8.1, public questions without notice is nil, and responses are nil. 8.3, are there any questions without notice?
That us over here.
Yeah. Yep, you're in the public.
Only a while ago, Richie Cochran anyway. Only a while ago, we talked about our Yans Road intersection and that.
Yes.
I'm really pleased that something's going ahead, but we've sort of been campaigning at Lions Club about slowing the road down altogether, and we had a petition in, we've had lots of work done, we've met with ministers and that, and I was wondering if you knew anything about anything they said about slowing the roads down at all, because there's some pretty dangerous intersections. We'd like to sort of see it a bit safer.
That's been the frustrating one because we've talked to ministers about it as well, and we've spoken to the engineers about it when we did some consultation last year, and we haven't had any joy at this point in time, which is frustrating because it was really from Yans Road right back to the other road.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that obviously. Loosemore's Road. Yeah. Because that's a dangerous road too. Yeah. And so, yeah, but we've been on your side with it, and we've spoken to a couple of ministers, and we've had about 3 of those this year so far. But it's a bit unfortunate because we all see it as an issue, but engineers are not agreeing with us at this point in time. But
I think some of them are. Yeah, we got a letter from one of the ministers, and he compared the Tench River shop to Kempton, like the mood food.
Yes.
And I just can't see anything that's similar about those two intersections.
No, I can't either.
And for him to give us that information, I reckon it's pretty disappointing.
It's been disappointing us.
Yeah.
And we're certainly with you, and if we can do anything else to help, well, I mean, all we could do is continue to talk to it. Probably get a new minister.
And so shall we.
All
right, thanks.
Good on you. Thank you. Anything further? Any further questions? No further questions? No questions from Victoria? Okay. You could make history. All right, moving right along to 9.1. Notice of motion from Councillor Poski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that the Circulated Council extends the free admission to Swirl from school holidays for students for a trial period of 12 months before a further review.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Woodward.
That's me.
I'll just make an amendment, or not amendment, but add addition. Or
yeah, just you can Councillor Poski whether he wants to speak first. Or
you want to speak before I put an addition?
Oh yeah, I reckon I could fill you in.
Probably going to fix it, are you?
Yeah, we've sent the notes from the officers, but the motion extends the recent school holidays trial for free admittance for students for a period of 12 months. The trial will meet Chill's concern for youth activities provided in the district. It will allow Chill to recruit and drive opportunities to sell the advantages of youth using the centre. The cost to council is minimal and can be implemented immediately as the centre is staffed to cater for the increased attendance. The motion meets council's strategic plans, population growth, wellness and livability in attracting families to our municipality. I recommend that council support the trial for review in 12 months.
Thank you. Deputy
It's
Mayor.
only really minor, so I'll just need to be able to have some sort of thing in there so it doesn't get lost about keeping the data. So actually putting in there that the data's collected over that time so we know how many people are using it, how it's increased.
Are you happy to?
Are you happy to put something like that in there?
I did that up in my notes, so I didn't read out then, but it's simple to administer and the data should be collected.
Yeah, I just think it needs to be in the motion.
And it can be done by issuing fobs. And people use it as they go in, just like when normal people go in, you use a fob and you get identified.
I wasn't asking a question, I just wanted to make sure that it got put into the actual motion so that we didn't lose that. So we got something to review in 12 months' time, that's all.
You're happy to have that included?
Yep.
The information.
Can I suggest
Yes.
some wording?
Yes.
Yeah, wording.
That entry be recorded to provide data for the review.
Thank you. You're happy with that, Council?
Yes.
And you're happy, Councillor Woodward?
Yeah, very happy.
Any further speakers?
A question, the cost's gonna be about 13,000 as I understand it.
Rubbery.
Am I correct? And in view of a budget estimate loss of 1.2 million, where's this 13,000 gonna come from to start off, and as far as our budget is concerned?
You like to endeavour to answer that, sir?
Thank you. Through Mr Mayor, councillors, there is no set budget for this, so it would be a drawdown on reserves, unless the elected members wish to find another area that they wish to divert some money from. But yeah, it would just be.
Thank you. Any further speakers? For or against? Councillor Atlan and Councillor Woodward.
I'd like to first say thanks to Councillor Podolsky for bringing it and seconding it. I think it's great to see these sorts of initiatives, especially when they support the young people. I think that a figure of 13,000, 14,000, if you look at preventative mental health, I think is a nothing. I do believe it's normal, and but I also believe we have a responsibility to the budget to find where else we can get this from, and to do the recording from it. But I also think that it should be part of the bigger strategy of either. So you're doing two things here, and it needs to be coordinated with other activities of activating the asset or youth preventive mental health. So it needs to be coordinated with the other activities, but otherwise I think it's something that we should all definitely support.
Thank you. Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I spent quite a bit of time down at the pool. Just this last week or two, the schools have been going in there, and it's great to see there one day there would have been 40 high school students at the pool. Some were swimming, some couldn't swim, they were just splashing around. I thought, how good is that they were there having that activity? Then I looked at them, and some of those kids can't afford to go to the pool, couldn't afford to go to the pool. So, I mean, if one person out of that 40 could go to the pool, splash around and really enjoy it and get to a stage where they learn to swim, what a great achievement that is. And I mean, if you could save that person from drowning because they've had that opportunity to go to the pool for no cost, and I don't think any dollars would ever cover that. And no pool in Australia that I know of makes a profit. So I thank Councillor Podolsky for putting this motion up, and I certainly support it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Woodward.
I'll rise to support the motion too. I think it's a good initiative to come up with a way of activating the space in a better way and to increase the youth participation. And I think this is just a way of moving forward. So I thank Councillor Podolsky for putting the
Motion for it.
Councillor Blizzard.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm supporting the motion as well. I do acknowledge Rachel's comments and information there. But I go back to prior to the first time I think Councillor Boston moved motion to trial the young people in for nothing into the soil. A comment was made at a chill meeting that a number of their peers simply couldn't afford to go to the pool. So I agree with, thank Rach for her numbers, but I agree with Councillor Etlin is that we probably need this to find where we're going to find it, and I'm sure we can find it somewhere in amongst it. So I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Any further speakers? If not, nobody spoke against it, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Planning items, there are none, so we'll go on to 11.1, Transport Infrastructure Service Level Amendment and Associated Tender.
Yes, that's me, Mr Mayor, as the Director of Infrastructure is not available tonight. So after discussion councillors have had previously, we're bringing the report to adopt a revised service level of doing the wider cut, and we're going to, if you endorse this report, seek tenders for the roadside slashing programme in accordance with that revised service level, and we will also test the market to see how much we might get for the tractor and the sidearm mower. Just testing the market, not selling it, just to understand what we might get for it. And we will come back to council once we have the tender responses. And we will look to find efficiencies in the budget to manage the cost of that. This should provide a better roadside vegetation management level for the community for the reasons that we've addressed in terms of road safety and fire safety and simple amenity as well. I present the report.
Thank you. Councillor Aldo.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise to move the recommendations that are before us.
Yeah, is somebody prepared to second that?
Yes.
Councillor Blizzard. Thank you, Councillor Aldo.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The recommendations are what has been discussed around this table through some workshops. The issue with seeking that clarification about what that tractor might be worth, but we've also got to make this point, and as I did at the workshop, that if it's not doing 1,000 hours a year, that tractor, we shouldn't have it. The roadside vegetation has not been working because you get more complaints about why are they not cutting to the fence. The trees are growing up. We'll get some trees and things this next year. It might finish up too big for a slasher, and it creates a huge problem and a fire issue, and certainly a road safety issue. Because if you haven't got those corners and things cleaned out, it becomes a traffic issue as well. And so therefore I call on the council to support it.
Thank you. Any further speakers?
Has that been seconded?
Yes. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I know Councillor Oldaker's comments there, and they're very valid. But on recent travel to Victoria in this current week, I noted on some of the highways they're actually using that, or councils and state governments, as part of a I suppose carbon neutral target, or planting trees in road corridors, and whether it was part of council's appetite going forward, it probably flows into this service level into the future. But looking at certain areas on flat and straight sections where there isn't traffic issues, but whether we actually looked towards making an income from that area. I just did a quick calculation on we roughly have 20 metre corridors, and if we were to use the 10 metres, 5 metres either side, that's approximately about 800 hectares we've got on our roads to current date, and with that that could be in excess of 100 grand a year per annum that we could make just from by planting trees. So that's another way of looking at it, whether I'm right or wrong, but it certainly would be good for our professionals to look at, because there are certainly some areas where we could make alternative income. Thank you.
Any further speakers? Councillor Plosky.
Mr Mayor, speaking to the recommendation, I'm a little bit perplexed on why, after 2 years, that we want to change the service agreement. The service agreement was agreed by this council, and it was put in place for a spray and slash program on our roads, similar to our neighbours at Waratah Wynyard. It was a cost-saving measure of about 110,000. We went down this path. At the time, when we discussed this, it was explained that the need to catch-up period and the advantage that spraying and slashing would complete all year round, and especially in low-growth areas. So that was the advantage of coming in-house with our own tractor. We could do it all year round. To change the process and to the new service levels, more information is required. Data on how the process and to change the process, data on how many hours and kilometres has the tractor slashed work since commencing. We haven't seen any of that, so I don't know whether it's a fully used mechanical aid or not. What operations efficiencies, as it says in the report, are going to be achieved to overcome the 100,000? So that's something we need to look at before we change. So, in looking at the recommendation, reading the report and wondering why we're changing now without giving it a full trial period, then I'd like to move an amendment if I could. And the amendment goes something like this: delete number 1, and let's do 2, 3 and 4, and then come back for further discussions.
Have I got a seconder for the amendment?
I'll second that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. We've now got an amendment that we're deleting 1. Just need to point out that all this is really going to come back to us anyhow, and we're going to putting it out there to see what we get, and then this is not a decision to have another contractor. It's not a motion that's going to sell the tractor or do anything else. It's just a matter of trying to find out more information and come back.
Mayor, when will this information come back to us?
After we get all the information that is required here.
So that'll be before this council finishes?
I don't know. No, it may not be. It may be the next council.
So really, what we decide tonight, we won't have a say after anyway.
The ones that don't stand or don't get elected, probably not. Yep. Anyway, we've got a amendment, and we're just dealing with it. Oh yeah, I thought you had to speak.
I basically am. I can go on a bit more and tell you why I got through. Can the general manager tell me the process that'll be if one's in there and you're going to send out tenders, you're going to say what will require? Will the tenderer know if he's an hourly rate, a contracted, a kilometre rate, or whatever? So that was the reason for the amendment. Let's go through the decision making. Then if it comes back that we need to change the service level to meet our requirements, that's the reason for the amendment. Yeah.
You sure you understand what?
I'm not entirely sure, but let me see if I've got this right. The tender for the roadside slashing programme would be seeking tenders for slashing fence to fence. Because if we go out on the current programme, we're not looking for any improvement for the community.
That's my question. That's my concern, is that
we're sending out a tender for fence to fence and we haven't decided if that may be the best way forward. I mean, if we change the service agreement, it is what we decide. If we don't change, if we do the other information first, then we can decide.
Well, through you, Mr Mayor, the discussion at the workshop was that fence to fence was agreed to be the way forward.
I believe on certain hierarchy of roads.
Point of order,
Not totally.
point of order, Mr Mayor. Councillor Popovsky has already spoke to the amendment.
Yes, he has
and,
spoke to it.
and he cannot jump up and down when this is going on.
Mr Mayor, can we move into committee? You'd have to move a motion to go into committee. Councillor Aldo.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. To take one out of this is you're asking the staff to do a certain job with a hand tied behind your back. If you want the tender process to go out, and that's what was agreed to, that we'd go out and see. We don't have to accept any tender, but you have to put this tender out alongside having the service level that's required for that tender. And therefore I will be voting against the amendment.
Councillor Etlin.
Yeah. In answer to some of Councillor Popovsky's questions originally about why we changed the process, we changed the process because there was a change that was being led. That's now not the case, and the process is sort of reverting back to what it was, more like what it was, and what we discussed at the workshop. There was reasons that the staff put that forward to us, and I think that it's a really good thing, especially in government at the moment, to try things and to make mistakes. And for us to go, okay, we tried that direction, we actually now have got a different scenario and we're going to go this way instead. I think that's what we need to do, and we need to be more agile with it. So I won't be voting with the amendment. I think we've got a lot to discuss, and what the staff presented at the workshop was there were reasons for that, and they ticked off a couple of things at the same time. So I agree with Councillor Oldacre's point on how they're connected. I'm going to go with that.
Councillor Osiris.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There are some very valid points at this table at the moment, but I tend to agree with Councillor Popovsky on the rationale that the hierarchy of roads we've got, particularly with roads R9, R10, the minor roads in our municipality. And that's why I'm trying to show the council there is another way, because if we're serious about saving costs, there's potentially 200 or 300 kilometres of our road network that we could be planting in trees, because there's hardly any traffic that use it. So we could be paid an income, reduce our service level on those roads, because you don't even have to slash them. Plant trees, get an income, and then put additional money into those road networks where they might require additional slashing, whether it's 2 or 3 times a year. So I think the service levels probably need a review, each particular road needs a review prior to any further commencements of going to the sourcing tender, I should say, with private enterprise. But yeah, that's just my opinion. But I hope people can see the rationale behind it, what Councillor Popovsky and myself are trying to advocate. Thank you.
Councillor Hine.
Yes, I rise to, I don't support the amendment. I think Brian Preddy could see that the job that was done last year wasn't up to scratch. I don't think it's a good idea, probably from what I understand Councillor Harris's point of view of planting trees. The minute you start shading the roads themselves, you're encouraging more wildlife to be there, which is creating a problem already. And so the cleaner you can clean that out and keep it clean, the better off this municipality will be.
Any further discussion required? If not, I'll close the discussion and I'll be putting the amendment, which is to delete 1. And that's all we're discussing at this point in time. Put the motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
That is lost. So we now come back to the motion, which is what's in the report. Is any further discussion required that hasn't spoken?
Yep, I haven't spoken at all, so I'm going to speak. I think everyone else has.
No, but you can come in on the motion.
No, what I understand where the amendment was going, and I understand the rationale behind it, but I think what we've got to do is actually change the way things are done at the top to try and get it sorted out. Get the tenders out, see what comes back, and then we deal with what comes out of that. I think that's the only way moving forward, so I'm going to vote for the motion.
Councillor Blizzard.
Mr Mayor, thank you. I was feeling out of it. I thought I'd stand up and say something.
You live in the urban area.
Look, I wasn't at the workshop, but I'm going along the fact that the information, decisions were made after information comes back to us, so we can, make final decisions once that's come back in.
Well, since I haven't said anything, I'm supporting the recommendation as well. I mean, we were plainly told that it didn't work since we made the changes, so we're making the change for the reason that it didn't work, and so I think that's fairly plain. We're actually told that because we haven't been slashing fence to fence, the trees, there are some trees that are growing more, and are concerned that our staff are concerned that they are going to shade the road, and also going to make it much more difficult to get rid of the trees that do need to be taken out because they're going to slashing are too big for a slasher to get on there. So it's just going to get progressively worse. So I was sold on their idea. Whether that was right or not will remain to be seen. But again, I need to stress that it's only putting it out there, and when we get the all the prices back in, we'll have a better idea of how it's going, and then we'll either make the decision to continue as we've been in the past year, or go to or revert back to contracting.
Mr Mayor, I support the recommendation, but I am disappointed. I am disappointed that the tractor and slasher that we've had hasn't been used enough, and so the job hasn't been done. So that's disappointing. So where have the workers been to use that machine to get the job done? That was because the slasher and tractor was put here to do that job.
Because we were told that when our officer come and talked to us that we've been losing staff and we haven't had the staff to do the work. So it's not because it shouldn't have been used, it's because we didn't have enough operators to be able to operate it.
Okay. I'm not convinced, but anyway.
Well, I can only tell you.
I know, and I heard the same at our workshop, but it's disappointing to know that that machine wasn't operated properly at that time, for the time we've had it, because that was the idea for it to be put here.
No, you asked a question, sorry.
Yep.
Give the answer.
Thank you.
Anything further? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Carried. Who dissented, which is fine. We'll now move on to 11.2. Response to interim report of future of local government or review board.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, we're proposing to make a submission in response to the interim report of the Local Government Review Board. This will not be the only opportunity to comment for this council. It's the only opportunity for this council as currently constituted. We had a discussion at the workshop about the issues that were raised in the interim report. I think we agreed that the interim report wasn't particularly clear about direction that they were going. So we've done our best to represent the needs of this community and council in the proposed response, which is Appendix 2. And I might just add at this point that the Mayor and I went to talk to the board members today who were meeting in Burnie. And they were very receptive to what we were saying. They took a lot of notes, they asked a lot of questions, they seemed very engaged, so we believe they're taking it seriously. They were interested in ideas and thinking around shared services and regionalisation of some things. So we had a good chance, a good discussion, a good input, and we'll see what happens. I think in probably around December that we'll start to see some options coming out from them. So I present the report.
Thank you. Are we prepared to move the recommendation? Thanks, Councillor Oldacre, Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion? We have talked about a bit in the past. If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 11.3, the Ramsar nomination for Robbins Island, Williamswood Bay Wetlands.
I think that's me again, so it's the me show tonight. Yes, this is, again, further to presentations and discussions at workshops, and councillors were in favour of participating in putting forward a Ramsar nomination, and I had some discussions with Cradle Coast Authority, and we've agreed to do this in partnership, and oops, sorry. Way through this thing. Sorry, scrolling finger. Yeah, so the nominating parties are listed there, and it is not a quick process to get a Ramsar status, but the first step is to write that letter of support for the nomination, and it can be anywhere from an 18-month to 2 to 3 year process to if one is successful. If one is successful, there's quite a bundle of money that potentially is then accessible to devote to the nominated area. So there are opportunities that come with it, and I'd also make the point that community access is not affected by not being nominated. So the community would still be able to carry out all the activities that are important to them. So, yes, I present the report.
Thank you.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Second that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Harrison, Councillor Bosky. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I commend the report, and I think some of the benefits that's outlined there are, hits the nail on the head, so to speak, in the fact that the tourism interest, and considering there's only actually one other site, like in Tasmania in general, with it being Martha Lavinia on King Island, I think some of the beauty in Tasmania is starting to be shown and how it needs to be preserved. But I think the General Manager is very right and needs to be advocated and stated is that the community won't lose out and won't lose access. So with that, I look forward to seeing this go ahead in full flight. Thank you.
You want to speak, Councillor?
Yeah, sure. For the mission opportunity. Look, this nomination is visionary. It's looking at the future of our wetlands. One where we can manage this unique wetland for the benefit of the next generations. As stated in the report, the wetland meets 6 criteria of the nomination already, plus 9 other natural values. There are also benefits: increased tourism, branding for our area and for industry, and it also attracts outside funding. It will also support our community's desire to appreciate and learn the attributes of the wetland, along
along with the Tarkine Coast Progress Group desire to gain access along the eastern boundary and onto the open beach. I recommend I hope the council recommends the recommendation that's put forward. Positive move.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Councillor Older.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've thought long and hard about this. With some regret, I'm going to vote against this. I'll tell you why. This has wider ramifications than just the wetlands. It affects our country from Deep Creek to the Welcome River. All those rivers flow into that out there, that bay. It becomes another level of bureaucracy that people will have to deal with. And it won't matter whether you're building a dairy or whether you're wanting to work some ground and want to drain some ground, all this is going to come on it. No people's going to stand up and say, no, that won't happen. Well, yes, it will, because the people we're dealing with. That wetland out there at the present time is protected by the Biodiversity Act. You can't do anything out there without the EPA. We've got a scenic protection thing that we put in last time. You won't believe that will come into play there. It is just, that's what I say to you, it is wider for this community than just that. It has huge ramifications, not only the dairy industry, but the beef industry, the whole lot. Because whatever you do out there, you're going to want somebody to come along and say, you can't do that. Well, if you want to see some angry people come then, you'll see them. I've tried to be very rational about it. I've stuck to my principles of what I believe in, and that is already protected out there, and therefore I don't think we need any further protection on it.
Any further speakers? Councillor Hine.
Yes, I'm going to vote against it because as Councillor Holdaker said, the way I see it is just going to create another layer of bureaucracy, and it's going to stifle development. It's a pristine area at the moment, and it's probably improved since the development of a lot of the areas. And the bird, if you read through the bird people's reports, it's actually good. It's probably improved over the years, and by doing something like this, it could very well stop development back up further as far as future irrigation projects and things like that. And so, for life now, I can't see why do you need fixing something if it's not broken now. And the other question I'd like to know is migratory birds that come here. Where they come from in the northern hemisphere, are those areas where the birds come from, Ramsar legislated as well, or are they just flying in from somewhere, and which is a question I don't know and I haven't got the answer for. But if those birds are not coming from Siberia, that where they do come from is not legislated as a Ramsar area, why should we be doing it here?
I couldn't answer that question. Deputy Mayor, Councillor President.
Yeah, my turn to go for you. Look, I'll be supporting the motion, but I initially asked questions when this first came up around the what would happen with the dairy industry, etc., and the stuff comes through, and you can and was informed that there's money to go around working that through. There may well be a bit of extra work in getting that in there. There may well be some discussion around, but there's also a huge amount of benefits that I can see going forward into the future by having the Ramsar listing. And when it comes down to it, this is the first stage of a number and a long consulting period anyway, where everyone's going to get a chance, everyone's going to be consulted about where they go next anyway. So this is just a support letter as where we are at the moment, and there's a lot more to play out through the whole thing as yet.
Deputy Mayor.
The wetlands of international importance. I think that's what we need to be aware of. And if we don't get it right, we end up losing it. It will happen. I've got nothing wrong with the farms and everything else that's going on. But we've had effluent that's been going out in the Bloomin' rivers and down the ocean, so we need to sort that out as well, which we've been doing. But these are the sort of things that can happen if we don't put things in place to protect it. And I think Ramsar will allow that place to be able to be used for the next 2-3 generations in time. And it's open, it's not going to cut off anyone from being used. We can still access it, we can still boat, we can still fish, we can still do the things that we want to do on it. So I think it's just a very good recommendation that we put forward. I think Ramsar listing is the way to go.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll be supporting it. I think that there are going to be other occasions to be able to pull out of this if during further discussion it proves that when if a farming fraternity really concerned about this with justification, the council can still pull out of this because it is going to be a program that's going to go for a couple of years. So any time during that time, if it's been that it is going to be bad for our district, that can happen. So plenty of other occasions to change your mind if probably not for myself because I'm not going to be here, but if our new council sees that there's some issues that are going to make it difficult, they can do that. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Aye.
Aye.
Carried. We now come down to financial reports.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, before you, we have the financial reports for the period ending 31st of July 2022. We received 3 applications for first homeowners grants, which is promising still. In terms of the comprehensive income statement, the main item there is rates raised in July at 9.4. The scattering of expenses and charges month. Statement of financial position, we have a total equity of around $247 million net. Investment summary at call at the moment is 9.1 million with the remainder. In terms of the cash flow statement, we've got a cash by at 17.2 million. Of rates outstanding, got 8.7 million outstanding of the 9.9 plus the 138 carried forward. So in the few weeks in July, that means we've collected about 1.3 million. We've got sundry debtors lower than the same time last year. In the 30 plus days, we're 431 last year, which is like a larger, potentially a grant funding invoice in there, so they tend to throw things out a little bit. With the 60 plus days only at 45,000, which is not too bad. And on page 171, we've got the cash and investments comparison. Shows that gradually increasing in July over the last few years. In terms of our audit, we've submitted our financial statements last Friday. Got the tick off to say that yes, they've been received and accepted on behalf of the audit office. Just done a few cosmetic amendments this week. It's the first time that we've actually done it in an Excel-based document. As audit office actually puts out a model set of notes each year, we generally do a word-based document. Excel is much better to be used, but it's taken obviously some time to get all your comparatives and all the data that goes with the 50 pages of notes and an explanation. So that's all been done, and then we've got auditors on site next week. So fingers crossed with the resourcing of the Tas Audit Office has been difficult like us, I suppose, in the last couple of years. So the sign-off date wasn't until basically right on 30th of September last year. So hopefully we can get it a bit earlier than that and get the annual report and AGM happening a bit earlier. With that, so thanks, Mr. Mayor, and I'll present the report for council's consideration.
Thank you. Any questions to Rachel?
Yes,
Councillor Woolworth?
Mayor, they're not hard ones. 379,000 come from Water Corporation. Did we get that last year? Did we miss out on that?
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, we received.
Last.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And the $9 million in bank, what interest rate do we get on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at 30th of June, we had to work out for the financials roughly what that was, and it's about 0.95%.
Not a lot.
On average, no.
No.
No, and the
So
investments aren't much,
that will
much
increase.
better. So,
Yeah.
hopefully it'll start to come up a bit.
Yeah, approximately. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, with interest rates rising on one side, it generally goes up on the other side. So,
Yep. Thanks, Rach.
Any further questions? I'll be prepared to move the recommendation.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, councillor Blizzard, and Deputy Mayor seconded. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Go to our senior management report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've already spoken about the Local Government Review Board meeting today, and below that there's a note of the other outreach sessions that are happening to provide informal opportunities for people who are interested to come and talk to us, the Mayor and myself primarily, about standing for council. And there's a number of things happening on the community front, so I'm going to ask Tracy to step in.
So we had the science gig on Monday night. There was about 450 people at that function, which is just phenomenal. And there were 60 prizes given out. And this year the theme was glass, which made it interesting with children. But I looked through some photos today, and there were just some phenomenal things that the children had worked on, and the whole process is really geared towards making sure that there's that children who go there, whether they participate and get an award or they don't, there are so many interesting things and really sparking that interest for children in science. So it was a phenomenal night. There is also, everyone gets a prize tonight, present. Charts, if you haven't got one, a charts program. So charts starts on the 2nd of September. The office is filling up with lots and lots and lots of paintings and pictures and all sorts of things. Sounds Round Town has sold out already. And this year we had a bit of a discussion today, and the team were telling me that they have advertised, this advertising's gone out, of course, through the Chronicle, but also through the Advocate. And they've had entries from as far away as Hobart. There's been information on the website, social media, and the Burnie Arts has come on board as a sponsor. So they've sponsored one of the prizes. And what they're doing, Burnie Arts is promoting through all of their networks the Charts Festival, and that'll happen in reverse. So Charts will promote the Burnie Arts as well, which is a really good partnership that we have. Also in youth, council supported 20 women, including members of CHIL, to participate in the Empower program. There was also the fundraising around the Minis winter appeal, and CHIL was able to raise $1,300, $1,300. That is pretty good to give for that program. I also today had a discussion with our staff down at the pavilions, and numbers have just been steady. There's a lot of interest in the cheese cheese tours, and so they've been selling lots of cheese. But this is we're still in winter, so things have been steady. So yeah, they're working really hard to make sure that visitors coming in are looked after, and that's all going really well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't go through you. I didn't. Run and miss this, so.
Thank you.
They tried.
I think one might say. Is there any questions on any of that, councillors? I'd encourage as many councillors to go to a lot of these art festival, especially the opening and closing. If you've got a passion with some of the rest of it, go to the functions you can. I know we can't go to everything, but if we can go to some of them, that would be really good and show support.
I might scare a net, go to the choir. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I was naughty.
Be the baritone.
Let me know when it is and I'll probably hear it from over.
Just once again, Mr. Mayor, I know I've done it a few times over the term, but I just think we're so lucky to have the community team that we have, and the passion that they have and they put into the youth and the opportunities that they're creating. And, you know, here we are in government meetings all the time trying to create opportunity, but there's people on the ground like that who are actually doing it. And that's where, you know, that's the real value that we've got. So well done to the team and for everything that they're actually making happen.
Thank you. Nothing further?
Mr. Mayor, I just had I'd like to congratulate you and also the letter that went to the Premier about the Whaleback Ridge in the senior management report. Yeah, I just think, and it's outlined in some of the paragraphs, it sort of meets our strategic, I suppose, values that we've got here at council, whether it's the Western Explorer or the APCA, that we've looked at priorities in the past, but I think this project is could be a game changer, not only for our municipality, but for the whole northwest region. So, yet again, thank you for the letter to the Premier.
You're welcome. Any further?
Just one little comment or question. The one about Lismore's Road, the letter that went out to Lismore's about the trees on each side of the road. Obviously, hasn't been slashed for many years for the trees to grow that big. Sorry, I just neutral. I think that'll get sorted out, but just a little big.
There's a road. There's some trees pretty close to me.
Yes.
Too close.
Way too close.
Somebody prepare. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Just with there was a letter to about the Department of Justice.
Yes.
Did you actually want any input on that, or are you just making us aware?
At this stage, I'm making you aware. I have a conversation on Teams with the department tomorrow to find out a bit more, and I'll report back.
I missed the question, Mr. Mayor, but was you talking about the court?
Yep.
Yes.
I heard the Mayor speak or read in the paper today. We have a courtroom. Let them use it. They got plenty of money.
That's what I told the advocates yesterday.
They didn't write that though.
No, they didn't, but I did tell them that they did have one there, that the government owned itself, and they went and sold it, and the serviced has, and library, and a couple of other rooms are there as well, but the courtroom that is purpose-built has never been used for many years and totally empty, and so why it's not used and why put it back on the council to look for others when they're actually there already. I totally support you. And I think that is the money a bit, but can't they negotiate? I mean, they're not getting nothing for it now, so, and they're only using it once every 2 months, I think they were using it, so, but obviously the rooms that are like they were here and staff were concerned about it. Plus, I don't think that they were totally happy with this either. Agritas was the same, and they felt that the magistrate didn't have enough protection. And so I don't believe they'll find anything else here, but they asked me whether, or advocated, whether it was important, and I said, yes, it is, because some people that do need to go to Burnie, if they can't have it here, haven't got licence, can't get up there, and so therefore they don't go to court, and it makes their circumstances much worse, which is possibly not their own fault, really. And so, but they didn't print any of that either.
Might have been their fault in the first.
So,
Is that something that we can start to advocate for, or that's something that we can make someone aware of?
well, I think
We know that governments need to work close together in that area, Department of Social Security or something like that. That we can.
well, it's obviously an issue, and I would expect that our GM is listening to our discussion. When she talks to the Department of Justice, those sort of things need to be talked about, but I think their negotiating skills is pretty ordinary. I don't think they even try something.
Did you just say that? Did I say that out loud?
I think I said it loud enough.
Think it out loud.
I'd probably, stupid observation or suggestion, but Stanley Rec ground, like the recreation there at Stanley, is that a possibility where the two buildings there back on back? And
I would reckon it'd be a problem.
You've got toilets and things around, it's there, and it's open, it's away from residents and so on.
That'd be no different than the Smithton. If you're going to have it, you'd have it in Smithton, because this is
Right, yeah.
more people are than Stanley.
So you're saying community centre might be much better than over there, but somewhere like that you think would be.
Yeah. Well, I don't say that it wouldn't, but the biggest issue, I mean, it is used with funerals and whatever from time to time, and that doesn't mean to say it couldn't work, but I mean, that's issues. I'm not sure whether the rec centre was checked on, but they do have fairly stringent rules that they have to abide by.
I mean, my understanding, the safety.
Yep.
We took it away from here because the safety of our staff, but it's also the safety of the judge.
Yep.
And anywhere like, as I just mentioned, or down at the rec ground, the safety of the magistrate.
That would be what.
That's what the issue is. Now, as you said, they had a perfectly good building, and I don't reckon they've been in there for 15 or 20 years.
That's right. That's what it would have been. And it was purpose-built. Okay, nothing further. Is somebody prepared to move the...
Second that.
Okay. Councillor Poposky and Councillor Eklund, with a couple others. Just lower tone. I only heard the loud voices. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Now, is there any other letters that anybody wanted to talk about? But most of them have been spoken about. If not, we'll go to 13, which is the minutes of committees. There are three.
The issue with this Stanley Chamber of Commerce writing to us about the roadkill, that's not our road, so it shouldn't be our worry. It should be the state road, shouldn't it not?
The state wrote back to them and said they'd do what they could. Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. The state wrote back to them and said they'd do what they could, but the roads, the township roads, were down to us. So I have written back to the Stanley Chamber of Commerce after consulting the depot staff, who've agreed to. They were already picking up some, but they've agreed to pick up more. And I've written back to the Chamber of Commerce to that effect.
Sorry for that, Mr. Mayor.
All right, no worries. Do we get a mover and seconder for the committees? No.
So moved.
Second.
Councillor Oldacre and Deputy Mayor, put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Lost where I am, but anyway, what's the first one?
Page 190.
Stanley Town.
Stanley Town Hall. Is there any queries on the town hall? Nothing on the town hall? Bill? Nothing comes up.
Yeah, just two things. There was a opportunity came up today where they were looking for a youth representative for some jobs and skills, and I wondered if maybe our youth mayor might be interested to at least apply. Sorry. That our youth mayor might be interested to apply, or someone in that group looking to at least look at the application, so I can find out more about that. And also I'll just skip quickly forward to the YAC. There's a couple of things in there where they haven't been able to get access to things that they'd like, and I just think that we could, as a council, support where they haven't had a response, and that we could just strengthen their voice a little bit. For example, they've asked to have a look at Windara and rural health, and there was just a couple of things in their meetings that I thought we could support, help them get access.
Thank you. Yeah, well, if there's anything that we could do to help them, that'd be fine. Youth Advisory
I need a battery.
Council? No, it's not battery. Anything on that at all? If not, we're down to the second lot of question times, which I don't think we're going to get another question.
Scared if you do.
Yeah, if somebody talks, I'd have a problem, wouldn't I? I need a motion.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second that.
You know what you're second?
Exactly.
Councillor Blizzard and Councillor Woodward. I'll put the motion, all those in.
Beat me there, matter.
Put the motion, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against carried, and then another one to closure of the meeting.
Yes.
Councillor Hine will move,
Yep.
and
Second.
Councillor Atlan will second. I'll put the recommendation, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against carried. And we'll turn these